The knife went in clean, under the ribs, straight to the heart. Wade Griffin looked down at the blade in his chest, then up at Caleb, his eyes wide with shock. 7 years. 7 years he had hunted the man who scarred his face, and now he was dying in the snow. But this story does not begin with Wade Griffin's death. It begins 3 months earlier, in a blizzard, with a man who had come to the mountains to die, and a child who should already have been dead. December 1867. Rocky Mountains, Montana Territory. The blizzard had howled for 3 days straight, 3 days of wind that tore at the cabin walls like a living thing, 3 days of snow falling so thick you could not see your hand before your face, 3 days of Caleb Ashford sitting alone by the fire, waiting for the world to end. It did not end. It never did. That was the problem. On the 4th morning, the silence woke him. After 70 hours of screaming wind, the absence of sound pressed against his ears like a physical weight. Caleb opened his eyes. Gray light filtered through cracks in the shutters. The fire had burned low. His breath made clouds in the frigid air. He sat up. His back cracked. 35 years old, and he moved like a man of 50. 6 years of living alone in the wilderness did that. 6 years of not caring whether he woke up or not. Caleb stood and walked to the window. He pushed open the shutters. Snow. Everywhere. A world erased. The pine trees sagged under their frozen burden. Some had snapped completely. The sky hung low and gray, pregnant with more snow yet to come. He turned back to the cabin. 1 room, rough-hewn logs, a bed, a table, a chair, a fireplace. That photograph on the wall, the only decoration in this sparse prison he had built for himself. The photograph showed a young woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She held a small boy in her arms, both of them looking at the camera, both of them frozen in a moment that no longer existed. Rebecca and Samuel Blackwood. No. Caleb shook his head. Not Blackwood anymore. Ashford now. He had changed his name when he came to these mountains, when he came here to disappear. His wife, his son, 6 years dead. Caleb poured coffee from the pot he kept warm by the fire. He drank it black and bitter. He had not added sugar or cream in 6 years. Sugar and cream were for people who still cared about pleasure, about comfort, about living. He pulled on his bearskin coat. The coat was heavy, warm, made from a grizzly he had killed 3 winters ago. The bear had wandered too close to the cabin. Caleb had shot it, skinned it, wore it, the circle of life in the wilderness. Kill or be killed, use or be used. He strapped on his snowshoes, grabbed his Hawken rifle, checked the load. The rifle was his most prized possession, a .50 caliber muzzle loader that could drop a buffalo at 200 yards. He had carried it through the war, through the years after. It had never failed him. Caleb stepped outside. The cold hit him like a fist. 30 below zero, maybe colder. His beard immediately stiffened with frost. The moisture from his breath froze on the hair around his mouth. He pulled his scarf higher. The snow came up to his waist in places, deeper where the wind had piled drifts against the cabin walls. His snowshoes kept him from sinking completely, barely. Each step required effort, a conscious decision to lift, to push, to continue. He moved along the eastern fence line. The fence marked the boundary of his trap lines. In good weather he could check all the traps in a day. In this snow it would take 3, maybe 4. Storm damage always meant work. Fence posts knocked down, traps buried, paths obliterated. The wilderness took back what man tried to claim, always, relentlessly, without mercy. Caleb had gone perhaps half a mile when he noticed something wrong. His eyes, trained by years as a Union Army scout, caught the irregularity immediately. Tracks in the snow, not animal tracks. These were different, long, dragging, furrows made by something pulling itself forward with desperate hands. He stopped. His heart began to beat faster, a sensation he had not felt in a long time. Not fear exactly, something else, something close to hope, close to dread. No one should be up here. No one knew this place existed except old Henry the merchant in Elk Ridge who traded supplies for furs twice a year. And Henry would never come in winter, never in a storm like this. Caleb followed the tracks, one hand resting on the handle of the Colt revolver at his hip, the other gripping his rifle. After 6 years of isolation, vigilance had become second nature. Assume danger, prepare for the worst, survive. The trail led to an ancient pine tree. Its lowest branches swept down to create a natural shelter beneath. The snow there had been disturbed, packed down, as if something had burrowed underneath seeking refuge from the storm. Caleb knelt. He pushed aside the snow-covered branches with the barrel of his rifle. What he saw made his heart stop. A child. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, lay curled in the hollow beneath the tree, dark brown hair frozen into stiff strands around her pale face. She wore a thin wool dress completely inadequate for the mountain winter. Her feet were bare, purple, frostbitten. Her lips had turned blue. Her skin held the color of old candle wax. Frost clung to her eyelashes like tiny crystals. But she was still breathing. Barely. Her chest rose and fell in shallow, irregular movements. Her breath came out in wisps of fog so faint Caleb had to look twice to see them. "Oh God." The words came out as a whisper. The first words Caleb had spoken aloud in weeks. He lived alone. He did not speak. There was no one to speak to. For one terrible moment, he did not see this unknown girl. He saw Samuel lying there instead. Samuel who had been about the same age when the fever took him. Samuel who Caleb had failed to save. The memory hit him like a physical blow. March 1861. Caleb had been 200 miles away guiding a supply train through dangerous mountain passes. The message had reached him late. Rebecca and Samuel were sick. Scarlet fever had swept through their town. Both had fallen ill. Caleb had ridden like a man possessed, changing horses 3 times, barely sleeping, pushing himself beyond all limits. But when he finally arrived exhausted and desperate, he found only 2 fresh graves in the churchyard. They had been buried 3 days before he got there. He never even got to say goodbye. Not this time. Caleb growled the words through clenched teeth. His hands, which had not trembled in years, shook as he tore off his bearskin coat. He wrapped it around the child. Then he lifted her carefully in his arms. She weighed almost nothing. Her small body was so cold it shocked him even through his clothes, like holding a block of ice shaped like a child. He could feel no heartbeat, no pulse, only that faint, desperate whisper of breath. "Stay with me." Caleb began to run, running through snow that deep should have been impossible. But Caleb ran anyway. He stumbled, he fell, he got up, he ran again. The child in his arms showed no sign of awareness. Her head lolled against his chest, her frozen fingers curled into loose fists. "Do not fall asleep. You hear me? Stay awake." He did not know if she could hear him. He did not know if she was already beyond saving. But he ran anyway, because for the first time in 6 years, something mattered. For the first time since Rebecca and Samuel died, Caleb Ashford cared whether someone lived or died. By the time he burst through the cabin door, his lungs were burning. His legs felt like water. Sweat had soaked through his shirt despite the cold. He laid the child on his bed right next to the stone fireplace. Then he immediately began building up the fire. His hands shook as he added wood, but his movements were sure, certain. He had done this before, during the war, treating soldiers who had been caught in winter storms, frostbite, hypothermia, exposure. He knew what to do. First, the wet clothes. He stripped off the frozen dress as gently as he could, trying not to damage the fragile skin underneath. Frostbite had already begun on her feet and fingers, the flesh turning an angry red-purple that would likely leave permanent damage. But she might keep the toes, the fingers, if he worked fast enough. He wrapped her in every blanket he owned. Then he heated water in a pot over the fire. Not too hot. That was the key. Warming a frozen body too fast could kill just as surely as the cold. The sudden change in temperature could send the heart into shock. Caleb soaked cloths in the warm water. He applied them to her neck, her armpits, her stomach, the places where major blood vessels ran close to the surface. Warming from the inside out. Gradually. carefully. As he worked, he noticed something in her hand. Even unconscious, her fingers were curled tight around a small object. Caleb gently pried her hand open. He found himself staring at a silver crucifix on a thin chain. It was simple, but well made. On the back, someone had engraved 2 letters and a date, AS 1865. This was not a child's necklace. This was the kind of crucifix worn by nuns. "Who are you?" Caleb murmured the question as he tucked the crucifix safely away. "Where did you come from?" The child, of course, gave no answer. She simply lay there, hovering somewhere between life and death, while Caleb kept vigil beside her, through the long day and longer night. By evening the fever began. This was actually a good sign. It meant her body was warming up, that her blood was flowing again, that she was fighting back against the cold that had nearly claimed her. But fever brought its own dangers, especially for someone already so weakened. The child thrashed in her blankets, moaning, crying out names that Caleb did not recognize. "Mama, Papa, do not leave me." Caleb pressed a cool cloth to her forehead. "I am here. You are not alone." More names spilled from her cracked lips, fragments of a life he knew nothing about, but one name came up more than any other, repeated like a prayer. "Sister Abigail, Sister Abigail, help me. Sister Abigail." The nun, most likely the owner of the crucifix. "What happened to you, little one? What horror drove you into my mountains?" Caleb did not sleep that night. Instead he sat beside the bed, changing the cool cloths on her forehead, trickling sips of warm water between her lips, watching her face for any sign of improvement. Outside the wind picked up again, rattling the cabin walls. But Caleb barely noticed. His entire world had narrowed to the small, fragile life struggling to survive in his bed. Somewhere in the darkest hours of the night between one heartbeat and the next, Caleb realized something had changed inside him. For 6 years he had not cared whether he lived or died. For 6 years his heart had been a cold, empty thing, as frozen as the mountain peaks outside. But now, watching this unknown child fight for her life, he felt something stirring, something he had thought dead forever. He felt purpose. "Please." Caleb said the words softly, not knowing who he was talking to. God, Mary, Samuel, anyone who might be listening. Please let her live. The second day dawned gray and cold, the storm still lingering on the horizon. Caleb had not slept at all, but he felt strangely alert, running on something beyond ordinary energy. The child's fever had stabilized during the night, neither worsening nor improving. Her breathing was stronger now, more regular. Some color had returned to her cheeks. The frostbite on her feet and fingers looked bad, the flesh angry and swollen. But Caleb had seen worse cases recover. There was hope. Around midday, while Caleb was outside splitting wood to feed the fire, the wind shifted. He paused, axe raised, listening. There was something else on the wind, a sound that did not belong to the wilderness. Footsteps, heavy, dragging, coming through the deep snow. Caleb set down the axe. He drew his revolver, positioning himself behind the wood pile where he had a clear view of the approach to the cabin. His heart was pounding, but his hands were steady. After so many years in the wilderness, he had learned to control his fear. The figure that emerged from the tree line was like nothing Caleb had ever seen. It was a woman, impossibly tall for her sex, standing 6 feet 2 inches, even taller than Caleb's own height of 6 feet. She wore the black robes of a nun, but the robes were torn and stained with blood, both dried and fresh. Her arms were covered in bruises and cuts, and when she turned her head, Caleb saw a pattern of wounds on her back through the rips in her habit. Whip marks. Someone had beaten her repeatedly and viciously. But what struck Caleb most were her eyes. They were dark and deep, filled with pain and exhaustion beyond measure, but also burning with a desperate, fierce light. This was a woman who had walked through hell, and she was still standing. She stopped a few yards away from Caleb, swaying on her feet but refusing to fall. When she spoke, her voice was raw and hoarse, as if she had been screaming, or had not had water for days. "You are keeping a child." Her words were not a question. Brown hair, 6 years old. "Is she here?" Caleb did not lower his gun, but something in his stance relaxed slightly. "Who are you?" "Sister Abigail Steele." "The child. Is she alive?" Caleb studied the woman for a long moment. Then he nodded. "She is inside. She is alive." Sister Abigail's legs buckled. She did not faint, but the strength simply left her all at once. She collapsed to her knees in the snow. Tears began to stream down her face, cutting tracks through the dirt and dried blood on her cheeks. "Thank God. Thank God." Caleb holstered his pistol. He moved forward, catching her arm before she fell face first into the snow. Up close he could see just how badly hurt she was. Besides the whip marks and bruises, there were knife wounds on her arms, rope burns on her wrists, and her feet, visible through the torn leather of her boots, were in nearly as bad shape as the child's. "You need to come inside. You are in no condition to be out here. The child first. I need to see her. She is sleeping. The fever broke a few hours ago. She will recover." Sister Abigail looked up at him, her dark eyes searching his face. For a moment something passed between them, an understanding that went beyond words. She had been through something terrible. He could see that. And somehow she had found her way here, to his hidden cabin in the mountains. Following the child, she had clearly risked everything to save. "What is your name?" "Caleb Ashford." "Thank you, Caleb Ashford." Sister Abigail's voice cracked on the words. "Thank you for saving her." Caleb helped her to her feet, supporting most of her weight. As they made their way to the cabin door, he was acutely aware of her size. She was only an inch or two shorter than him, but it was her breadth that was remarkable. Her shoulders were as wide as a man's. Her arms, visible through the torn sleeves, showed defined muscle. This was not the soft, cloistered body of a typical nun. When they stepped inside, the warmth of the fire wrapped around them like an embrace. Sister Abigail's eyes went immediately to the bed where the child lay sleeping. A sound escaped her lips, a choked sob of relief and grief and love all mixed together. She stumbled to the bedside, fell to her knees. Her trembling hand reached out to touch the child's cheek. The little girl stirred at the contact but did not wake, her face peaceful in sleep. "Emma," Sister Abigail whispered the name. "My sweet Emma, I found you." Caleb stood back, watching. He had 100 questions, but they could wait. This moment belonged to them. After a few minutes, Sister Abigail turned to look at him. Her tears had stopped, replaced by a weary calm, but he could see she was on the verge of collapse, running on nothing but willpower. "You need to rest, and those wounds need to be cleaned. Some of them are infected." "I know." Sister Abigail's voice was flat. "Matter of fact, I have been walking for 2 days. I did not have time to tend to them. 2 days. In this weather I thought she was dead." A flicker of raw emotion crossed her face before she controlled it. "They told me she was dead, but I had to see for myself. I had to know." Caleb brought her a cup of warm water and a bowl of broth he had made for the child. She drank the water in desperate gulps, but only sipped at the broth, her hands shaking too badly to hold the bowl steady. "Who did this to you?" Caleb asked the question quietly. "Who told you the child was dead?" Sister Abigail set down the bowl. Her eyes met his, and in their depths Caleb saw a darkness that matched his own. "Have you heard of the Reapers?" Caleb went very still. "The gang that operates along the frontier, the ones who killed those settlers near Bozeman last year. They killed more than settlers near Bozeman." Sister Abigail's voice turned hard as iron. 3 weeks ago they attacked a wagon train I was escorting. 5 families, 23 people, including 7 children. She paused, her jaw tightening. "They killed everyone except me and Emma. Why did they spare you?" "They did not spare me. They kept me alive because their leader wanted to take his time." Sister Abigail touched the whip marks on her back through her torn robe. "Every one of these is a question he asked me. Where did I hide Emma? Where was the child? He believed if he hurt me enough, I would tell him. But you did not tell him." "No, I did not tell him." Sister Abigail looked at the sleeping child with fierce protective love. I promised her mother I would keep her safe. Sarah Mercer. She was the last one they killed. She looked at me before she died and said, "Save my daughter." I could not save anyone else, but I could save Emma. She told Caleb the rest of the story, how she had hidden Emma beneath a fallen tree, covered her with leaves before leading the bandits away, how they had caught her, beaten her, tortured her for days, how she had finally escaped during the night when they were moving camp, throwing herself off a cliff into a half-frozen river. They thought I was dead. The fall should have killed me. The cold should have killed me. But I did not die. Sister Abigail's voice was steady now. Certain. I found the tree where I had hidden Emma, but she was gone. I thought they had found her. I thought I had failed. She found her own way here, Caleb said. I do not know how. I found her under a pine tree, half frozen, but still holding your crucifix. Sister Abigail's hand went to her throat where the crucifix had once hung. I gave it to her before I led them away. I told her to pray and to wait for me. She paused, her voice breaking. I did not think I would ever see her again. Caleb absorbed this information in silence. Then he asked the question that had been forming in his mind since she mentioned the Reapers. Their leader. What did he look like? Tall, thin, maybe 45, maybe older. Sister Abigail's eyes narrowed with hatred. He had a scar on his face, a long scar running from his forehead down to his cheek, on the right side. Caleb felt the blood drain from his face. He knew that scar. He had put it there. You know him, Sister Abigail said. It was not a question. His name is Wade Griffin. Caleb's voice was flat, controlled, but his hands had clenched into fists. And yes, I know him. I am the one who gave him that scar. Sister Abigail stared at him. How Caleb walked to the window, looking out at the snow-covered mountains. The memory came rushing back, as vivid as if it had happened yesterday instead of 7 years ago. It was 1864, near the end of the war. I was leading a supply train through the mountains when we were ambushed. Confederate irregulars, a dozen of them, led by an officer named Wade Griffin. He turned back to face Sister Abigail. It was not a normal fight. Griffin did not just want to stop our supplies, he wanted to kill every man, even the ones who surrendered, even the ones too wounded to fight. I watched him shoot a boy, 17 years old, who was begging for his life. Dear God, Sister Abigail whispered, we fought back. Most of my men were killed, but I made it to Griffin himself. Hand to hand, knife against saber, he gave me this. Caleb pushed up his sleeve, revealing a long scar on his forearm. I gave him the one on his face. Then reinforcements arrived and he retreated. Caleb let his sleeve fall. After the war I heard he deserted, formed a gang of other deserters and criminals. They have been raiding the frontier ever since. The army has a bounty on him, but no one has been able to find him. Sister Abigail was silent for a long moment. Then she said, he will be looking for me. For Emma. He does not like to lose what he considers his property. He does not know where I am, Caleb said. No one knows about this cabin except one man in Elk Ridge, and he would never tell. I found you. Sister Abigail's voice was quiet but firm. If I could find you, so can they. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Caleb knew she was right. He had chosen this place for its isolation. But isolation was not the same as safety. If Griffin and his men started searching the mountains, they would eventually find the cabin. He looked at Sister Abigail, then at the child sleeping on the bed. 2 lives now depending on him, 2 people he had not asked for, had not wanted. But as he looked at them, something shifted in his chest. That cold, dead place where his heart used to be suddenly felt warmer. You should rest, both of you. We can figure out what to do in the morning. Sister Abigail nodded, exhaustion finally catching up with her. She moved to the bed, lay down beside Emma, curling her large frame protectively around the small child. Within minutes, she was asleep. Caleb sat down in his chair by the fire. He watched them. The nun who had walked through hell to save a child that was not even hers. The little girl who had somehow survived the impossible. He did not know what the future held. He did not know if Griffin would find them or what would happen if he did. But for the first time in 6 years, Caleb Ashford felt something other than emptiness. He felt hope. 3 days passed. 3 days of recovery, of healing, of watching these two strangers become part of his world. Emma woke on the 3rd day, truly conscious for the first time since Caleb had found her. Her eyes fluttered open, confused at first, then widening with fear as she took in the unfamiliar surroundings. Sister Abigail was there instantly, gathering the child in her arms. "It is all right, Emma. You are safe. I am here. Sister Abigail." Emma clung to her, sobbing. "I thought you were dead. The bad men said you were dead. I am not dead. I came back for you, just like I promised." For several minutes Emma cried against Sister Abigail's chest, releasing all the terror and grief she had held inside. Caleb stood across the room, giving them space. But Emma's eyes kept darting to him with obvious fear. When her sobs finally quieted, Sister Abigail wiped the tears from her cheeks. "Emma, do you see that man there? That is Mr. Ashford. He found you in the snow. He saved your life." Emma looked at Caleb with wide, frightened eyes. She did not speak, did not move, just stared at him like he might transform into a monster at any moment. Caleb understood. She had seen what men could do. The Reapers had shown her the worst of humanity. For a child her age, every man was now a potential threat. So he did not approach. He simply sat down in his chair, keeping his hands visible, and spoke in the quietest voice he could manage. "Hello, Emma. You have been very sick, but you are getting better. You are safe here. No one will hurt you." Emma did not respond. She just buried her face in Sister Abigail's shoulder, her small body still trembling. That first day set the pattern for those that followed. Caleb kept his distance from Emma, never approaching unless necessary, always moving slowly, speaking softly. He gave up his bed to Sister Abigail and the child, sleeping instead on the floor near the fireplace. He rose before dawn each morning to build up the fire, had breakfast ready before either of them woke. He chopped wood, brought water, cooked simple meals, all while maintaining a careful distance from the little girl who watched him with wary eyes. Slowly, day by day, Emma began to relax. She still flinched when Caleb came near, still watched him with weary eyes, but the raw terror began to fade. She saw how Sister Abigail trusted him, saw how he cared for them without asking for anything in return. On the 5th day after Sister Abigail's arrival, something changed. Caleb was sitting by the fire, working on a new wooden spoon to replace one that had cracked. Emma was across the room with Sister Abigail, but he could feel the child's eyes on him. Carefully he kept working, not looking up, letting her observe him without pressure. After a while, small footsteps crossed the cabin floor. Caleb continued his carving, even when he sensed Emma standing a few feet away, watching. "What are you making?" Her voice was barely a whisper, the first words she had spoken directly to him. "A spoon." Caleb answered, still not looking up. The old one broke. Silence. "Then my papa used to make things from wood too. He made me a little horse, but I lost it when we ran." Caleb's hands paused for just a moment. Then he resumed carving. "I could make you a new one, if you would like." He heard her sharp intake of breath. "Really, really, it might not be as good as your papa's, but I would try my best." More silence. Then so softly, he almost missed it. "Thank you." Caleb finally looked up. Emma was standing there, small and fragile, clutching the silver crucifix that had become her constant companion. Her eyes were still cautious, but something else was there too, a tiny flicker of trust. "You are welcome." That night, after Emma had fallen asleep, Caleb began working on the wooden horse. Sister Abigail watched him from across the room, her dark eyes thoughtful. "You are good with her," she said quietly. "I am just trying not to scare her. It is more than that. You understand what she needs." Sister Abigail paused. "You have had children." It was not a question. Caleb did not deny it. 1. A son. Samuel. He died 6 years ago. He was about Emma's age. I am sorry. Do not be. It was not your fault. Caleb's hands kept working, shaping the wood. It was mine. I was not there when he needed me, when they both needed me. Sister Abigail was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "You are here now." Caleb looked up, met her eyes. "Yes, I am here now." The next morning Caleb found the tracks. He was on his patrol, checking the trap lines and watching for any sign of danger, when he came across something that made his blood run cold. Hoof prints in the snow. Many of them. At least 6 horses, maybe more, moving in a formation that spoke of military training. He followed the tracks for half a mile, his unease growing with every step. At a place where the riders had stopped, he found cigarette butts, empty shell casings, .44 Henry ammunition, expensive and rare, reapers. Caleb ran back to the cabin, his heart pounding. When he burst through the door, both Sister Abigail and Emma looked up in alarm. "We have a problem," Caleb said, breathing hard. "There are riders in the area, 6 or more. From the tracks I would guess they are reapers." Sister Abigail went pale, but her voice stayed calm. "How far?" "About 5 miles east. The tracks are 1 or 2 days old. They are searching for something. For us, most likely." Caleb looked at Emma, who had gone very still, her eyes wide with fear. "We need to prepare." The next few days were filled with frantic activity. Caleb showed Sister Abigail every trap, every defensive position, every escape route he had established over 6 years of living in these mountains. To his surprise, she absorbed the information quickly and efficiently, asking intelligent questions, offering suggestions of her own. "You have training," Caleb observed one afternoon, after watching her set a deadfall trap with expert precision. "My father was a blacksmith in Fort Benton," Sister Abigail replied. "He wanted a son, but he got me. So he raised me like one, taught me to ride, to shoot, to survive, and your strength. 15 years working the forge, starting when I was 10, pulling bellows, swinging hammers, hauling iron." She looked down at her large calloused hands. "People called me unnatural, said no man would want me." She shrugged. "They were probably right. But my father taught me to use what God gave me, not to apologize for it." Caleb handed her his Colt revolver. "Show me what you can do with this." They walked to a small canyon half a mile from the cabin, where the sound of gunshots would not carry far. Caleb set up 3 targets at 30 feet. Sister Abigail took aim. 3 shots. 2 hit the target dead center. 1 went slightly wide. "Not bad," Caleb said. "But you are thinking too much. Shooting is like breathing. Do not think, just do." He stepped behind her, not touching, but close enough that she could feel his presence. "Trust your instincts, the target, the gun, and your breath. That is all that exists." Sister Abigail fired 3 more shots. All 3 hit the center. She turned to look at him, a small smile on her lips, the first real smile he had seen from her. "My father used to say the same thing. Your father was a wise man." Her smile faded slightly. "He died when I was 25. Accident at the forge. After that I had nothing. No family, no home. A man in town wanted to marry me, but not for love. He wanted the forge. When I refused, he made my life impossible." Caleb understood without asking. Small towns could be cruel to women who did not fit their expectations. "The convent took me in," Sister Abigail continued, "gave me purpose, gave me a place to belong." She paused. "But sometimes I wonder if I was running toward God or just running away from men." "Maybe both," Caleb said. "Does it matter?" Sister Abigail considered this. "No, I suppose it does not." They returned to the cabin as the sun was setting. Emma was inside playing with the wooden horse Caleb had finished the night before. She looked up when they entered, her face lighting up. "Look, Sister Abigail, Mr. Ashford made it for me." She held up the carved horse. Simple but well made. 4 legs, a flowing mane, a proud neck, It is beautiful, Emma." Sister Abigail knelt down beside the child. "What will you name it?" Emma thought for a moment. "Hope, because Papa said we always have to have hope." She meant her real father, William Mercer, dead now, buried in a shallow grave 5 miles from here. But Caleb felt the word pierce his chest anyway. Papa. He had not heard that word in 6 years. That evening while Emma slept, Caleb and Sister Abigail sat by the fire, closer than they had sat before. Something had shifted between them during the shooting lesson, some barrier coming down. "Can I ask you something?" Sister Abigail said. "Ask. Why do you live up here alone? What are you running from?" Caleb was quiet for a long moment. Then he told her about Rebecca and Samuel, about the fever that took them while he was far away doing important work, about the guilt that had consumed him ever since. "I was supposed to protect them. That was my job. That was the only thing that mattered. And I failed." Sister Abigail listened without interrupting. When he finished, she said, "So you came up here to die, to wait." Caleb corrected, "To wait until death came for me. I figured it would not take long, but it did." He looked at her. 6 years and I am still here. 6 years of nothing but emptiness and regret. And then Emma appeared. And then you." He paused, his voice rough with emotion. "You changed everything. You asked me why I helped you, why I did not just turn you away. The truth is, when I found Emma in the snow, I saw my son. I saw Samuel frozen and alone, and I could not let it happen again. This was my second chance. I could not waste it." Sister Abigail reached out and took his hand. Her grip was strong and warm. "You did not waste it. You saved her. You saved us both." They sat like that for a while, hands clasped, watching the fire burn down. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them needed to. Finally, Sister Abigail broke the silence. "What happens now?" Caleb squeezed her hand. "Now we survive together." But what neither of them knew was that outside in the darkness, someone was watching. 200 yards from the cabin, lying flat in the brush, a man peered through binoculars, counting, assessing, mapping. His name was Silas Crow, the best tracker Wade Griffin employed. He had been following Sister Abigail's trail for 2 days, and now he knew exactly where she was. He noted the layout of the cabin, the wood pile that provided cover, the windows, the single door, the fence-line trap system he had carefully avoided triggering. 1 man, 1 woman, 1 child. He watched as the lamp inside was extinguished, saw the cabin go dark. Silas Crow slid backward through the snow, moving with the silence of a predator. When he was far enough away, he stood, brushed the snow from his coat, and began the long walk back to where Wade Griffin waited. The boss would want to hear this. The morning of the 8th day, Caleb went out on his patrol earlier than usual. Something had woken him before dawn, some instinct honed by years of survival, a feeling that something was wrong. He found the tracks within an hour, fresh, less than 12 hours old, 6 horses, moving in the same military formation as before, but this time they had come much closer, within 2 miles of the cabin, and at one spot where the riders had stopped, Caleb found something that made his blood freeze. Boot prints, leading away from the horses, heading directly toward his cabin, then returning. Someone had walked to within 200 yards, had observed, had reported back. They knew. Caleb ran, his snowshoes slapping against the packed trail he had made over years of use. His breath came in white clouds, his heart hammered in his chest. When he burst through the cabin door, Sister Abigail was already awake, feeding Emma breakfast, but she took one look at his face and stood immediately. "What is it?" "They found us. The tracks are fresh, less than a day old. 6 riders, 2 miles east, and someone walked to within spitting distance of this cabin last night, scouted our position, then went back." Emma's spoon clattered into her bowl. The little girl's face went white. The bad men Caleb knelt down in front of her, trying to keep his voice calm. "Yes, Emma. But remember what I told you. I promised I would protect you, and I keep my promises." Emma nodded. but her hands were shaking. Sister Abigail put an arm around the child's shoulders. "How long do we have? 1 day, maybe 2. They will want to attack at night, when they think we are sleeping, unprepared." Sister Abigail's jaw tightened. "Then we make sure we are prepared." They spent the rest of that day and the next fortifying the cabin into a fortress. Caleb strung alarm lines through the forest. Tin cans filled with pebbles hung on thin rope at 3 distances: 100 meters, 50 meters, 20 meters. Anyone approaching would trigger the noise long before they reached the cabin. He dug pits, 6 feet deep, sharpened stakes at the bottom, covered them with branches and snow, carefully marking their locations so he and Sister Abigail would not fall in themselves. He rigged a deadfall, a massive boulder balanced on logs. A tripwire would send 300 pounds of stone crashing down on anyone who triggered it. He set bear traps, hiding them beneath fresh snow on the most likely approaches. Sister Abigail worked beside him, her unusual strength making tasks that would normally require 2 or 3 men possible for just the 2 of them. She hauled logs, mixed mortar, lifted beams, her shoulders and arms moving with a power that Caleb found himself watching more than he should. At one point she tried to hammer a nail into a support beam. The hammer looked like a child's toy in her large hand. She swung once. The nail punched straight through the wood and out the other side, leaving a hole. Caleb stared at the damage. "Could you perhaps hit a little less hard?" Sister Abigail looked at the hammer, looked at the hole, looked at Caleb. "I can try." Despite the tension, despite the fear hanging over them, Caleb found himself smiling. It had been a long time since he had smiled. They created designated fighting positions. Caleb would take the woodpile on the north side. It offered the best view of the main trail, the only path wide enough for horses. Sister Abigail would cover the west window. Her angle gave her a clear shot at anyone trying to flank around the side. They divided their ammunition. Caleb had 40 rounds for his Hawken rifle, 30 for his Colt. Sister Abigail now carried Caleb's spare revolver, a .36 caliber Navy Colt, smaller than his .44, but deadly enough at close range. Most importantly, they prepared the cellar, the hidden space beneath the cabin where Emma would hide when the attack came. They stocked it with food, water, blankets, a knife for protection if the worst happened. On the evening of the second day, Caleb brought Emma down to show her the space. "Emma, look at me." The little girl met his eyes, trying to be brave, but he could see the fear. "When the bad men come, you will hide here, no matter what you hear, no matter what happens. You do not come out until Sister Abigail or I come for you. Can you do that?" Emma swallowed hard. "I can try." "Not try. Do. Your mama trusted Sister Abigail to keep you safe. And Sister Abigail and I are trusting you to stay hidden, no matter what. Can you promise me that?" Emma nodded slowly. "I promise." "Good girl." Caleb started to stand, but Emma suddenly threw her arms around his neck, hugging him tight. "Mr. Ashford." "Yes, Emma." She pulled back, looking at him with those serious brown eyes that seemed too old for her age. "Can I call you Papa?" The question hit Caleb like a physical blow. For a moment he could not breathe, could not speak, could not think. Papa. The word Samuel had called him, the word he thought he would never hear again. "I mean, if it is all right," Emma added quickly, mistaking his silence for rejection. "I know you are not my real papa, but you saved me, and you take care of me, and you make me feel safe, like Papa did. So I thought maybe—" She trailed off, uncertain. Caleb found his voice. "Yes," he said roughly. "Yes, you can call me Papa. Really, really." Emma's face split into a wide smile, the first genuine smile he had seen from her. She hugged him again, tighter this time. "Thank you, Papa." Caleb held her, feeling something crack open inside his chest, something that had been frozen for 6 years. He looked up and saw Sister Abigail standing at the top of the cellar stairs, watching them, tears streaming down her face. Their eyes met, and in that moment something passed between them, something deeper than words, a recognition, an understanding. They were not just three people hiding in a cabin anymore. They were becoming a family. That night, after Emma was asleep, Sister Abigail sat beside Caleb. "She called you Papa," she said softly. "I heard. How do you feel about that?" Caleb stared into the fire, terrified, like I have been given something precious, and I am afraid I will lose it again. Sister Abigail took his hand. "You will not lose her. We will fight for her. Together. Together," Caleb repeated, testing the word. It felt strange in his mouth, foreign, but also right. Yes, together. They sat in silence for a while. Then Sister Abigail asked, "What was he like, your son Samuel?" Caleb's throat tightened. He was 4 when he died. Bright, curious, always asking questions. Why is the sky blue? Where do the birds go in winter? How does the sun know when to come up? He smiled at the memory. Rebecca used to say he would be a professor someday, or a philosopher, someone who made sense of the world. He sounds wonderful. He was. Caleb's voice broke slightly. "And I was not there when he needed me most. You are here now. For Emma. I know. And I will not fail again." They lapsed into silence once more. But it was a comfortable silence, the silence of two people who had found something unexpected in each other. Eventually, Sister Abigail stood. "I should sleep. Tomorrow may be difficult." "Yes." Caleb watched her walk to the bed where Emma already slept, watched her lie down beside the child, curling her large frame protectively around the small one. And he thought not for the first time that Sister Abigail Steele was unlike any woman he had ever known. They came at midnight on the third night. Caleb jerked awake at the sound of tin cans rattling. 2 distinct clatters, one from the east, one from the south. At least 2 groups, flanking. He was on his feet in seconds, rifle in hand. Sister Abigail was already awake, the Colt in her hand, her eyes alert and ready. 2 sounds, east and south. Caleb whispered, "Distraction. The main force will come from the north. It is the only path wide enough for horses." Sister Abigail nodded. They moved quickly. Caleb helped her lower Emma into the cellar. The child was frightened, but trying to be brave. "The bad men," she whimpered. "They found us." Caleb knelt down to her level. "Emma, look at me." She met his eyes, trembling. "I promised you I would protect you. Remember?" She nodded. "I keep my promises. You stay in this cellar no matter what you hear. Do not come out until Sister Abigail or I come for you. Can you do that?" Emma swallowed hard. Then she did something that made Caleb's heart crack wide open. She threw her arms around his neck and hugged him tight. "I believe you, Papa," she whispered. "I believe you." Caleb held her for just a moment, feeling tears sting his eyes. Then he gently detached her arms and lowered her into the cellar. Sister Abigail kissed her forehead. "We will come back for you, I promise." Then they closed the trap door, covered it with a rug and furniture, and went to meet the enemy. The night exploded into chaos. Caleb took his position behind the wood pile on the north side of the cabin, where he had a clear view of the main trail. Sister Abigail moved to the west window, her Colt steady in her hands. The moon was hidden behind clouds, leaving the world in almost total darkness. But Caleb had lived in these mountains long enough to see by starlight alone. He counted the shadows moving through the trees. 5 men approaching from the north, just as he had predicted. They moved with the confidence of experienced killers, spreading out to surround the cabin. Caleb waited. Patience was a hunter's greatest weapon. The lead man stepped into the clearing. Caleb squeezed the trigger. The Hawken roared. The man dropped without a sound. For a moment, everything went still. Then all hell broke loose. Caleb Ashford. A voice rang out through the darkness, a voice that Caleb recognized instantly. Older now, rougher, but unmistakable. "I know you are in there. Give me the nun and the child, and I will let you live." Caleb did not answer. He was already reloading, his hands moving with practiced efficiency. "I know you can hear me, Ashford," Wade Griffin continued, his voice carrying a mocking edge. 7 years I have carried this scar on my face. 7 years I have dreamed of finding you, and now here you are, playing hero for a nun and a brat. How pathetic. From the west window, Sister Abigail fired. Another shadow dropped. "There is someone else," one of the reapers shouted. "Not just Ashford." The gunfight that followed was brutal and chaotic. Muzzle flashes lit up the darkness like lightning. Bullets thudded into the cabin walls, sending splinters flying. Caleb moved from position to position, firing, reloading, firing again. The traps he had set began to take their toll. A scream echoed through the night as one man fell into a concealed pit, impaled on sharpened stakes. "Help me! Help!" The voice cut off abruptly. Another cry followed when the deadfall of heavy stones came crashing down, triggered by a man who had not seen the tripwire. The sound of breaking bones echoed across the clearing. But the reapers were experienced fighters. They adapted quickly, stopped advancing blindly, began using the trees for cover, trading shots with Caleb and Sister Abigail in a deadly standoff. As the first gray light of dawn began to creep over the mountains, Caleb realized they were running low on ammunition. He had perhaps 10 rounds left for his rifle, 6 for his pistol. Sister Abigail had even fewer. "You are running out of bullets," Ashford Wade shouted, as if reading his mind. "I can wait all day." "Can you?" Caleb was about to respond when a new sound cut through the morning air. A wolf howl. But not from a real wolf. It was a signal, one that Caleb recognized from his days as an Army scout. Gunfire erupted from a new direction, catching the reapers completely by surprise. Caleb saw 3 figures emerging from the tree line to the west, firing as they came. "Ashford," a familiar voice shouted. "We saw them heading up the mountain. Figured you could use some help, old Henry." The merchant from Elk Ridge, and his 2 sons, Matthew and John, the only people who knew where Caleb lived. The reapers, caught between 2 forces and having already lost nearly half their number, began to fall back. But before Wade disappeared into the trees, he turned and shouted one last threat. "This is not over, Ashford. I will come back, and next time I will burn this whole mountain to ashes." Then he was gone, swallowed by the forest. The aftermath of the battle was grim. 5 reapers lay dead in the snow, their blood staining the white ground crimson. Matthew had taken a bullet to the shoulder, but the wound was not life-threatening. Old Henry approached Caleb, his weathered face grave. "You cannot stay here. Griffin will return, and he will bring more men." "I know." Caleb looked at the cabin that had been his home for 6 years. "We are leaving. Going to Fort Ellis. Fort Ellis is 7 days from here in good weather." Old Henry shook his head. "In winter it could be 10 or more. With a child and a wounded woman, that is a hard journey. It is the only choice." Caleb met the old man's eyes. "The Army can protect them, and they have a bounty on Griffin. Maybe they can finally put an end to him." Old Henry nodded slowly. "Then I wish you luck, Ashford. You are going to need it." They left the cabin at first light the next morning. Caleb led the way, carrying most of their supplies on his back. Sister Abigail followed with Emma, either walking beside her or riding on her back when the terrain became too difficult for the child's small legs. They brought only what they absolutely needed: food, water, blankets, ammunition, and the medical supplies that might mean the difference between life and death. The first day was the hardest. The snow was deep, sometimes reaching up to their waists, and every step required enormous effort. The temperature hovered well below freezing, and the wind cut through their clothes like knives. But they kept moving, mile after mile, hour after hour. They pushed forward through the frozen wilderness. Emma amazed them both. She did not cry, did not complain, did not ask for rest. Even when Caleb could see she was exhausted, she simply put one foot in front of the other, her small face set with determination. "You are very brave," Caleb told her during a brief rest stop. Emma looked up at him with those solemn brown eyes. "Mama said being brave does not mean you are not scared. It means you keep going even when you are. Your mama was a wise woman." Emma nodded. "She and Papa are stars now. They watch over me from the sky." Caleb felt his throat tighten. "I am sure they do." As the days passed, the bond between the three of them deepened. They fell into a rhythm, a wordless understanding of each other's needs and capabilities. When Caleb grew tired, Sister Abigail took the lead. When Sister Abigail needed rest, Caleb carried Emma on his shoulders. When Emma faltered, both adults were there to support her. At night they huddled together in whatever shelter they could find. Caves, overhangs, dense groves of pine trees that blocked the wind. They did not dare light fires for fear of attracting attention, so they relied on shared body heat to survive the bitter cold. One night in a small cave about halfway to Fort Ellis, Emma fell asleep between Caleb and Sister Abigail. Her small body pressed against both of them for warmth, her breathing even and peaceful. The sleep of a child who felt safe despite everything. Sister Abigail watched the sleeping girl, her face soft in the dim light that filtered through the cave entrance. "She has started calling you Papa," she said quietly. "I noticed." Caleb did not know how to feel about it. "Is that all right? I think so. She needs a father. She lost hers in such a terrible way." Sister Abigail paused. "You are good for her. She is good for me." Caleb looked at Emma's sleeping face. "I thought I was dead inside. I thought I would never feel anything again. But she brought me back. We brought each other back." Sister Abigail's voice was barely a whisper. "All three of us." Caleb turned to look at her. In the faint starlight, her face was beautiful in its strength, its honesty, its fierce determination. She was unlike any woman he had ever known. Abigail. He used her name without the title for the first time. She met his eyes. "Yes. When we reach Fort Ellis and Emma is safe, what will you do?" Sister Abigail was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "I do not know. Everything I thought I knew about my life, about my place in the world, it all feels different now." "Different how?" She looked away, her jaw tightening as if she was fighting some internal battle. "When I took my vows, I promised 3 things: poverty, obedience, and chastity. I promised to dedicate my life to God and the church." She turned back to him, her dark eyes glistening. "And now I am not sure those vows mean what I thought they meant." She paused. "I thought serving God meant hiding from the world, living behind walls, following rules, never letting myself feel anything too deeply. But these past weeks protecting Emma, fighting to survive, being with you, it feels more like service than anything I ever did in the convent." Caleb reached out and took her hand. It was not a romantic gesture. Not exactly. It was simply a connection, a way of saying I understand without using words. "You do not have to decide anything now." "I know." Sister Abigail squeezed his hand. "But I want you to know that whatever happens, I am glad I found you. I am glad we are together. So am I." They sat like that for a while, hands clasped, watching over the sleeping child who had brought them together. Outside the wind howled through the mountains, but inside the cave there was warmth. On the 7th day, Emma fell ill. It started with a cough, then chills, then a fever that left her face flushed and her eyes glassy. The combined stress of the journey, the cold, the fear, and the physical exertion had finally overwhelmed her small body. "We have to keep moving," Caleb said, though it broke his heart to say it. "If we stop now, we all die. She cannot walk like this." Sister Abigail lifted Emma into her arms, where the child curled against her chest, shivering despite the blankets wrapped around her. "I will carry her." For the next 2 days they pushed on through increasingly difficult terrain. Sister Abigail carried Emma almost constantly, her incredible strength finally being tested to its limits. Caleb broke trail through the deep snow, trying to find the easiest path. But there was no easy path in these mountains. Emma drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes lucid and sometimes delirious. In her fever dreams, she called out for her parents, for Sister Abigail, and increasingly for Papa. Each time she said that word, Caleb felt something crack a little more inside him. He had already lost one child. He could not lose another. "We are close," he told Sister Abigail on the 8th day. "One more day, maybe less. Fort Ellis is just over that ridge." Sister Abigail looked at him with exhausted eyes. Can she last that long? She has to. Caleb's jaw tightened. She will. They made camp that night in a sheltered hollow, risking a small fire because Emma needed warmth more than they needed to stay hidden. Caleb sat beside the child, holding her hand, willing her to hold on just a little longer. "Papa," Emma's voice was weak, barely a whisper. "I am here. Are we going to make it? We are going to make it. I promise." Emma managed a small smile. "You always keep your promises. Always." But even as he said the words, Caleb knew they were not out of danger yet. Not by a long way. Later that night, after Emma had fallen into a restless sleep, Sister Abigail sat beside Caleb. She looked pale, drawn. The journey and the constant carrying had taken their toll. "Caleb," she said softly. "Yes, there is something I have not told you." She reached into her torn habit, pulled out a folded piece of paper, stained and worn. "I found this in the coat of one of the men who attacked the wagon train, the day they killed Emma's parents. I have been carrying it ever since." She handed it to him. Caleb unfolded the paper carefully. It was a letter, written in a harsh, angular hand. "Griffin, $1,000 when my niece is dead. Bring proof. But there is a condition. She must die before March 15th, 1868. After that, the will takes effect. She gets everything. Kill her before, or no money. Signed, L.S." Caleb looked up at Sister Abigail. "Your Uncle Lawrence Steele, my father's younger brother." Sister Abigail's voice was flat. "He hired the reapers to kill me. But why $50,000 in silver? My father left it all to me in his will, but only if I lived to age 28. I turn 28 on March 15th, 3 months from now." She paused. "If I die before then, Lawrence inherits everything. So he hired Wade Griffin to make sure I did not reach my birthday." Caleb stared at the letter, processing this new information. It explained so much. Why the reapers had attacked the wagon train, why they had been so determined to capture Sister Abigail, why Wade had tortured her for information. This was not just about revenge. This was about money. A fortune in silver, enough to make a man rich for life. "And now we are racing against time," Sister Abigail said quietly. "If I die before March 15th, Lawrence gets $50,000. If I survive, it is all mine, and he goes to prison for murder." Caleb looked at Emma sleeping fitfully by the fire, then back at Sister Abigail. "Then we make sure you survive, both of you." Sister Abigail met his eyes, and for the first time since they met, she smiled. A real smile, full and genuine and beautiful. "Thank you, Caleb Ashford. No, thank you, Abigail Steele, for reminding me what it means to be alive." They sat in silence for a while, the fire crackling between them. And Caleb thought not for the first time that he had come to these mountains to die. But somehow, impossibly, he had found reasons to live instead. 3 people running from death, running toward life, and finding each other along the way. Tomorrow they would reach Fort Ellis. Tomorrow they would find safety. Tomorrow they would figure out what came next. But tonight, in this small cave with the fire burning low and the wind howling outside, they were together. A mountain man, a warrior nun, and a child, bound by circumstance, united by choice, a family forged in snow and fire, and whatever came next, they would face it together. The 9th day dawned gray and cold, heavy clouds threatening more snow. Caleb, Abigail, and Emma entered the canyon, the narrow passage that was the only route to Fort Ellis. Emma was unconscious in Abigail's arms. Her fever had peaked during the night, but she was still breathing, still fighting. They had made it. 1 more mile, maybe less. Fort Ellis lay just beyond the ridge ahead. Caleb could see the flag, the stars and stripes flying above the wooden walls. Safety, protection, the end of their journey. Then he heard it, the sound of hoofbeats echoing off the canyon walls. Caleb stopped, raised his hand. Abigail froze behind him. From around the bend ahead, 4 riders emerged. Wade Griffin sat on the lead horse, his scar vivid in the morning light. 3 of his remaining men flanked him. They spread out. blocking the only path forward. "Hello, Ashford." Wade's voice was cold, mocking. "Did you really think you could escape me?" Caleb pushed Abigail and Emma behind him, drew his revolver. He had 4 bullets left. There were 4 enemies. The math was simple, but the reality was not. Wade and his men had rifles. They had the advantage of horseback, and they were spread out, making it impossible to target them all. "This is between you and me, Griffin. Let them go." Wade dismounted slowly, his hand resting on the handle of a long Bowie knife at his belt. "You are in no position to bargain, Ashford. The nun killed one of my men. The child is my property. I do not let people take what belongs to me. Emma was never yours. She is never yours. Everything in this territory is mine." Wade drew his knife, the blade gleaming. "But I did not track you through these mountains just for them. I came for you. For 7 years I have wanted to finish what we started." He gestured to his men. "If anyone but Ashford moves, kill the nun and the child." The 3 remaining reapers raised their rifles, aiming at Abigail and Emma. Caleb looked at Abigail. Their eyes met. 1,000 unspoken words passed between them. Then Caleb handed his revolver to Abigail. "If anything happens to me, get Emma to the fort, over that ridge. Promise me." "Caleb, no." Sister Abigail's voice cracked. "Promise me." She swallowed hard, tears forming in her eyes. "I promise." Caleb turned back to Wade, drew his hunting knife from his belt. "You want to finish this? Let us finish it, just you and me. Whoever wins their people go free." Wade's eyes glittered with cruel amusement. "You think you can beat me? You are old, Ashford, old and soft. There is only one way to find out." For a long moment Wade considered, then he nodded. "Fine, 1-on-1. But when I kill you, the nun and the child are mine." "Agreed." Wade handed his pistol to one of his men, stepped forward into the clearing, knife gleaming in the gray morning light. Caleb did the same, leaving the gun with Abigail. Moving into the open space, they circled each other slowly, each looking for an opening. Wade was younger, faster, probably stronger. His knife had longer reach. But Caleb had something Wade did not have. He had something worth fighting for. Wade struck first, a vicious slash aimed at Caleb's throat. Caleb ducked under the blade, countered with a thrust to Wade's midsection, but Wade twisted away, the knife barely missing. They separated, circled, clashed again. Wade's knife caught Caleb on the forearm, opening a deep cut that immediately began to bleed. Caleb gritted his teeth against the pain, kept fighting. "You are slower than I remember," Wade taunted. "Age catches up with all of us." Caleb did not waste breath on a reply. He feinted left, then went right, his knife slicing across Wade's ribs. Wade hissed in pain but did not stop. They fought on, trading cuts and slashes, painting the snow red with their blood. Caleb was tiring, his movements becoming slower, his reactions duller. The years of solitude, of letting his body weaken, were catching up with him. But every time he felt himself flagging, he thought of Emma, thought of Abigail, thought of the family he had found against all odds, and he kept fighting. Wade sensed victory. He pressed his advantage, driving Caleb back with a flurry of savage blows. Caleb blocked, parried, dodged, but he was losing ground. Then Wade made a mistake. He overcommitted to a straight thrust. Putting all his weight behind a blow meant to end the fight. But Caleb was not there. Moving with speed he did not know he still possessed. Caleb sidestepped the thrust, grabbed Wade's knife arm, twisted hard. Wade's blade went wide. In the same motion Caleb drove his own knife upward, under Wade's ribs, into his heart. Wade's eyes went wide with shock. He looked down at the knife in his chest, then up at Caleb. How he gasped. "You were right." Caleb's voice was cold as the mountain wind. "I am old, but old men fight dirty." He pulled the knife free. Wade Griffin, murderer and thief and destroyer of families, fell dead in the snow. For a moment no one moved. The 3 remaining reapers stared at their fallen leader, too shocked to react. Then Caleb bent down, picked up Wade's pistol, turned to face the 3 men, blood dripping from his wounds, death in his eyes. "Your boss is dead. Your gang is finished. You have two choices. Leave now and never come back, or join him." The reapers looked at each other. Then without a word, they turned their horses and rode away, disappearing into the forest. Caleb stood there for a moment, swaying on his feet. Then his legs gave out. He collapsed into the snow. Abigail's scream echoed through the canyon. She set Emma down gently, ran to him, dropped to her knees, turned him over. His eyes were open, but unfocused. "Did I keep my promise?" His voice was barely a whisper. "You kept your promise." Abigail pressed her hands against his wounds, trying to stop the bleeding. "Now you need to keep another one. You need to stay alive." Caleb reached up, touched her face weakly. "For you. Anything." Then everything went dark. He woke to warmth and the smell of wood smoke. For a moment Caleb did not know where he was. The ceiling above him was made of wooden planks, not rock, not sky. He was lying on a real bed, covered with real blankets. And somewhere nearby a fire crackled in a hearth. He turned his head, saw Abigail sitting in a chair beside his bed, her eyes closed, her head drooping with exhaustion. Beyond her through a window he could see a flag flying in the wind, the stars and stripes. Fort Ellis. They had made it. As if sensing his gaze, Abigail's eyes fluttered open. When she saw him looking at her, her face transformed with relief and joy. "You are awake." She leaned forward, taking his hand. "The doctor said you had lost too much blood. He said it was a miracle you survived." How long? Caleb's voice was a croak. 3 days. Emma and I have been here the whole time. She would not leave your side." Caleb looked around, spotted Emma curled up in a chair in the corner, fast asleep, her face peaceful. The color had returned to her cheeks. The fever had broken. "She called you Papa," Abigail said softly. "When you were unconscious, she held your hand and told you about the stars watching over you. She said you had 4 stars now, and they would not let you die." Caleb felt tears slip down his cheeks. He did not try to stop them. Abigail squeezed his hand. "You saved us. You saved both of us. We saved each other." She smiled, that rare, beautiful smile that transformed her whole face. "Yes, I suppose we did." Several days later, when Caleb was strong enough to sit up, Colonel Matthews came to see them, a stern man in his 50s, his uniform pressed and proper, but his eyes were kind. He listened to their story with grave attention. When they were finished, he shook his head slowly. "Wade Griffin has been a wanted man for years. There is a substantial bounty on him, dead or alive. Since you are the one who killed him, Mr. Ashford, the money is yours, $2,000. Caleb did not care about the money, but it would be useful. It would give them a chance to build a new life. And my Uncle Abigail asked, "Lawrence Steele." The colonel's expression darkened. "We sent a telegram to Denver with the evidence you provided. The letter, your testimony. Lawrence Steele has been arrested. He is awaiting trial for murder and conspiracy to commit murder." Abigail could hardly believe it. "So the $50,000, the inheritance from my father, it is mine." "After you reach your 28th birthday." "Yes." "Which is March 15th, if I understand correctly." "Yes. That is 2 months from now. You are welcome to remain here at the fort until then. We can protect you until the inheritance is secured." Caleb looked at Abigail, then at Emma, who had woken and was sitting quietly in the corner, holding the wooden horse he had made for her. "Thank you, Colonel. We accept." They stayed at Fort Ellis through the long winter. Emma recovered fully, growing stronger each day. The soldiers at the fort adopted her as a kind of mascot, spoiling her with sweets and attention, teaching her to play checkers and tell jokes. She bloomed under their care, the haunted look gradually fading from her eyes. But she never strayed far from Caleb or Abigail. They were her family now, her anchor, her home. Caleb's wounds healed slowly. The knife cuts had been deep, and he had lost a dangerous amount of blood. But with rest and proper food and care, his body began to mend. By February, he was walking again. By early March, he could ride. One evening, about a week before Abigail's birthday, they sat together on the porch of the officers' quarters, watching the sunset behind the mountains. Emma was inside, playing checkers with a young lieutenant who had taken a shine to her. "I wrote to the convent," Abigail said quietly. "I told them what happened, and I told them I am not coming back." Caleb turned to look at her. "Are you sure?" "I have never been more sure of anything." She met his eyes. "When I took my vows, I thought I was dedicating my life to God. But I have come to understand that serving God is not about hiding from the world. It is about being in the world, loving people, protecting them, fighting for them." She reached out and took his hand. "I found my calling in that mountain cabin. I found it with you and Emma. I am not going to walk away from that." Caleb was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "I never thought I would feel anything again. After Rebecca and Samuel, I thought that part of me was dead forever. But you and Emma brought me back to life. So where do we go from here?" Caleb looked out at the mountains, at the vast wilderness that had been his home for so long. "There is a town called Bozeman, not far from here. Good land, good people, a place where we could build something. A home, a home." He squeezed her hand. "For all three of us." Abigail smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "I would like that." From inside they heard Emma's delighted laughter, followed by the deeper chuckle of the soldier she was playing with. The sound filled the evening air, the sound of a child healing, learning to be happy again. "Abigail," Caleb said. "Yes. Will you marry me?" The question hung in the air between them. Abigail looked at him, her dark eyes searching his face. Then she leaned forward and kissed him. It was a gentle kiss, tender and full of promise. When she pulled back, her face was shining with happiness. "Yes, yes, I will marry you." From the doorway a small voice piped up. "Does this mean I can call you Mama now?" They turned to see Emma standing there, a huge grin on her face. Abigail laughed, a joyful sound that seemed to surprise even her. "Yes, sweetheart, you can call me Mama." Emma ran to them, throwing her arms around both of them at once. Caleb lifted her up, settling her on his lap, and the three of them sat there together, watching the last light fade from the sky. A family forged in fire and snow, a family that had found each other against all odds, a family that would last. On March 15th, 1868, Abigail Steele turned 28 years old. She stood in the office of the Fort Ellis legal officer, signed the necessary documents, and became the legal heir to $50,000 in silver, the largest fortune she had ever imagined. Lawrence Steele, her uncle, was convicted of murder 2 weeks later. He would spend the rest of his life in prison. In April they traveled to Bozeman, a small town of perhaps 200 people, nestled in the Gallatin Valley with the mountains rising majestically on all sides. It was beautiful. It was peaceful. It was perfect. Caleb used $200 from the bounty money to purchase 40 acres of land on a hill overlooking the valley, close enough to town for Emma to attend school, but far enough away to provide privacy and peace. They began building their cabin immediately, working together, Caleb's experience and Abigail's strength combining to create something neither could have built alone. By June they had walls and a roof. By July they had furniture and a working fireplace. But as they worked, Caleb began to notice something troubling, the way people in town looked at Abigail, the whispers that followed them when they went to buy supplies. She was too tall, too different, her skin too dark. A former nun marrying. It was not right. It was not proper. It was not natural. Abigail heard the whispers too. She felt the stares, and slowly, painfully, the old feelings of not belonging began to return. One day in early June she came home from shopping in town, her eyes red from crying. Caleb found her sitting on the unfinished porch, her shoulders shaking. What happened? Nothing. Everything. She wiped her eyes angrily. I went to the general store to buy flour and sugar, and the woman behind the counter, she refused to serve me, said this was a Christian establishment, and they did not serve women who had broken their vows to God. Caleb felt rage boil in his chest. I will go talk to her. No. Abigail grabbed his arm. That will only make it worse. Please, just let it go." But Caleb saw the pain in her eyes, the hurt, the shame she tried so hard to hide. "They will come around. They just need time. And if they do not," Abigail's voice was small, defeated, "then that is their problem, not yours." Caleb sat beside her, put his arm around her shoulders. "You are the strongest, bravest, most remarkable woman I have ever known. If they cannot see that they are fools." Emma, now 7 years old, came running up from where she had been playing. "Mama, why are you crying?" Abigail wiped her eyes quickly. "I am fine, sweetheart." "No, you are not." Emma climbed into her lap. "Did the people in town say mean things again?" Abigail nodded, unable to speak. "They are wrong," Emma said fiercely. "You are the best mama in the whole world, and I do not care what they say." Caleb held them both, and wondered how long they could stay in a place that did not want them. 2 weeks later, their world burned. It happened at night. Caleb woke to the smell of smoke, leaped out of bed, saw flames already consuming the western wall of their newly built cabin. Fire. Get Emma Abigail was already moving, grabbing the little girl, wrapping her in a blanket. They burst through the door just as the roof began to collapse, stood in the yard watching everything they had built turn to ash. By dawn, nothing remained but charred timber and smoking ruins. All their clothes, their food, their tools, the money they had saved, gone. The three of them sat in the grass, covered in soot, staring at the destruction. "Someone did this on purpose," Caleb said quietly. "I found kerosene cans. They doused the walls before lighting them." Abigail said nothing, just stared at the ruins with empty eyes. "Why?" Emma whispered. "Why would someone do this? Because they hate what they do not understand." Caleb's voice was bitter. The sheriff arrived later that morning, a tired-looking man named Patterson. He surveyed the damage, took notes, questioned Caleb. "Did you see anyone?" "No. We were asleep." "Any idea who might have done this?" Caleb looked at Abigail, then back at the sheriff. "Someone who does not like that my wife is a former nun, or that she is mixed race, or that she is different. Take your pick." The sheriff sighed. "I am sorry, Ashford. I will ask around. But without witnesses or evidence, there is not much I can do." After he left, Caleb turned to Abigail. "Maybe we should leave. Find somewhere else. Somewhere people will accept us." Abigail looked at the ruins of their home, then at Emma, then at Caleb. When she spoke, her voice was steady, determined. "No. This is our land, our home. We fought too hard to get here. I will not let hatred drive us away. But how do we rebuild? We have nothing left." "I do not know," Abigail admitted, "but we will find a way." That afternoon they heard the sound of a wagon approaching. Caleb stood, hand going instinctively to his pistol. But it was not trouble. It was Mr. Henderson, the owner of the general store, an old man in his 60s, gray-haired and weathered. He climbed down from his wagon, walked toward them. In his hands he carried a large sack. "Ashford, Mrs. Ashford." He nodded to each of them. "I heard about what happened. I am sorry." He set the sack down. It was heavy. Caleb could see rice spilling from the top. "This is not much, but it is something, to help you get back on your feet." "You do not need to do this," Caleb started to say. "I know," Henderson interrupted, "but I want to. Your wife saved that little girl, fought for your family, walked through hell itself. This town needs people like that, people with courage." He tipped his hat to Abigail. "I was wrong about you, ma'am, and I am sorry." Then he climbed back into his wagon and rode away. 15 minutes later, another wagon arrived. Mrs. Chen, the Chinese woman who ran the fabric shop. She too had faced discrimination in this small town. She brought blankets, clothes, fabric to make more. "For you and the child," she said simply, then left. Then came Reverend Morrison from the church. He brought $20 from the congregation fund, for families in need. Over the next 3 hours more came, Old Henry and his sons bringing lumber from Elk Ridge, Dr. Harmon from Fort Ellis bringing medical supplies and $50, a farmer and his wife bringing food, a widow bringing $5, all she had. One by one they came, each bringing what they could. Some brought money, some brought materials, some brought food, each offering help without asking for anything in return. An elderly Shoshone man approached Abigail, spoke to her in the language of her mother's people, words Caleb did not understand, but he saw tears stream down Abigail's face, saw her take the beaded necklace the old man offered. "He says this belonged to my mother." She translated, her voice breaking. "He says I have come home." A young mother brought her 7-year-old son. The boy held out a worn teddy bear. Mama said to give this to the little girl. Emma took the bear, hugged it tight, began to cry. By evening, over 40 people had come, bringing supplies, bringing hope, bringing community. When the last wagon had left, Caleb and Abigail stood surveying the pile of donated goods. There was enough lumber to rebuild, enough food to last months, enough money to buy tools and supplies, enough to start again. The sheriff returned as the sun was setting. Found the men who did it. 3 drifters, paid by someone to burn you out. They have been arrested. He paused. And Ashford. I am sorry. Most of us are not like them. Most of us want you here. Caleb nodded, unable to speak. Abigail stood beside him, her hand in his, Emma between them. They had lost everything, but they had gained something far more valuable. They had gained a community. The wedding took place in August, at the small church in Bozeman. Reverend Morrison officiated. Over 100 people attended, nearly half the town. Abigail wore a simple white dress, made by Mrs. Chen. It was not fancy, but it was beautiful. And for the first time in her life, Abigail stood tall without shame, proud of who she was. Emma served as bridesmaid, wearing a blue dress, carrying wildflowers she had picked that morning, her face serious but smiling. Caleb stood at the altar in a borrowed suit that did not quite fit, his beard trimmed short for the first time in years, watching Abigail walk toward him, his eyes wet. When Reverend Morrison asked the sacred questions, neither Caleb nor Abigail waited for him to finish. "Do you, Caleb Ashford, take?" "Yes." "Do you, Abigail Steele, take?" "Yes." Laughter rippled through the congregation. "Well then," Reverend Morrison smiled, "I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." Caleb kissed Abigail, long and deep and full of love. The congregation applauded. Emma hugged them both. "We are a family now, really and truly. We always were," Caleb said, "from the very first day." As they left the church, Abigail tried to fit through the doorway. Her wedding dress caught on the frame. She was stuck, unable to move forward or back. "Do not," she warned, seeing the smile forming on Caleb's face. "Do not what?" "Do not laugh." Caleb laughed anyway, long and loud and joyful. Abigail started laughing too. Emma helped pull the dress free. The whole congregation laughed with them. But this time it was laughter of joy, of celebration, of acceptance. They rebuilt the cabin larger than before, with help from their neighbors. By September it was finished. 3 bedrooms, a proper kitchen, a workshop for Caleb, and a small schoolroom where Abigail began teaching the local children. 10 students at first. Reading, writing, arithmetic, history. Abigail was patient and intelligent, a natural teacher. Within months, parents were bringing their children from miles around. Caleb guided wagon trains through the mountain passes. His reputation as the best scout in the territory grew. Settlers sought him out. Railroad surveyors hired him. Even the army occasionally requested his services. But he always came home. Every trip was measured in days, never weeks. He had learned the hard way what happened when he stayed away too long. Emma grew like a weed. By age 8 she could ride a horse, track a deer, shoot a rifle with decent accuracy. But she also loved books, and learning, and asking endless questions about everything. In the spring of 1869, Abigail told Caleb something that changed everything. They were sitting on the porch, watching the last snow melt on the distant peaks. Emma was inside practicing her letters. "Caleb," Abigail said, her voice carrying an odd note, "I need to tell you something." "What is it?" She took his hand, placed it on her stomach. "There is going to be another member of our family." For a moment Caleb did not understand. Then realization dawned. His eyes went wide. "You mean you are with child?" "Yes. Dr. Harmon confirmed it last week. The baby will come in the fall." Caleb stared at her, emotions churning through him too fast to name. Joy, fear, wonder, grief for Samuel, the son he had lost, hope for the child to come. "A baby," he whispered. "Are you happy?" "Happy." Caleb pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "I am terrified. I am overwhelmed. I am more grateful than I have ever been in my life." He pulled back to look at her face. "We are going to have a baby. We are going to have a baby." That night they told Emma the news. The little girl's reaction was everything they could have hoped for. A baby brother or sister. Her eyes went round as saucers. "Really, really," Abigail said. Emma whooped with joy, launched herself at them, hugging them both at once. "This is the best news ever. I am going to be a big sister. You are going to be a wonderful big sister," Caleb told her. "I am going to teach the baby everything I know," Emma declared. "How to ride horses and catch fish and find the best berries. And I am going to tell the baby about the stars, about how Mama and Papa Mercer and Rebecca and Samuel are watching over us." Caleb felt his throat tighten. "That sounds perfect, sweetheart." The baby was born in October. A boy, healthy and strong, with his mother's dark hair and his father's sharp eyes. They named him Samuel Thomas Ashford, the first name in honor of Caleb's lost son, the middle name for old Henry, whose timely intervention had saved all their lives. Emma was the first to hold him after his parents, cradling her baby brother with a tenderness that belied her 8 years. "Hello, Samuel. I am your big sister Emma. I am going to take care of you. Always." The baby gurgled, reached up toward her face. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "He knows me. He already knows me." "Of course he does," Abigail said from the bed, exhausted but radiant. "You are his sister." Caleb stood by the window, watching his children, old and new, bond for the first time. The stars were coming out one by one, filling the sky with light. 5 stars had become 6. The Ashford family was complete. 5 years passed, years of growth and building and love. The cabin became a home filled with laughter. Emma grew into a thoughtful, intelligent young woman. Samuel became a curious, energetic boy, constantly asking questions and getting into mischief. Abigail's school expanded. 20 students, then 30, then 40. The town built a proper schoolhouse, named it Steele Academy in her honor. She taught 5 days a week, reading, writing, science, history, making no distinction between boys and girls, rich or poor, white or Indian or Chinese, education for all. Knowledge is power. In 1873, when Emma was 12 and Samuel was 4, Abigail and Caleb sat on their porch, watching the children play. Emma was teaching Samuel to recognize bird calls, patient and gentle with her little brother. "Did you ever think we would get here?" Abigail asked. Caleb admitted. 6 years ago I was waiting to die in a cabin, alone, empty. Now I have so many reasons to live I cannot count them all." Abigail leaned her head on his shoulder. "I love you, Caleb Ashford. I love you, Abigail Ashford. Always." The years continued to pass. 20 years after they met. 30, 40. Emma grew up, married a young doctor named Daniel Morrison, son of the Reverend who had married her parents. They had 2 children of their own, Caleb Jr. and Sarah. Samuel went to college in Denver, studied law, became a passionate defender of the marginalized, those discriminated against because of race or religion or circumstances, like Mama was. He said, "I will protect people like her." By 1888, Caleb was 56 and Abigail was 48. Their hair showed gray. Their faces bore lines, but their eyes still held love. Steele Academy now taught nearly 80 students. 2 assistant teachers helped Abigail. The school had become the heart of the community, a place where all were welcome. One evening, sitting in their usual spot on the porch, Abigail said, 20 years since we married. 21 since that winter. Since you found Emma in the snow. Best thing that ever happened to me, finding her. Finding both of you. Caleb took her hand. Not a day. Thousands of days. Every day I wake beside you. Every day I watch our children. Every day I know. This is home. This is where I belong. Abigail wiped away tears. I love you, Caleb. I love you, Abigail. Forever. The years became decades. In 1918, Caleb was 86 years old. Abigail was 78. They still sat on the same porch, still held hands, still loved. Around them, 3 children, 8 grandchildren, 4 great-grandchildren, a family large and loud and happy. Emma, now 57, approached them. Papa, Mama. I have been talking with Rebecca, their youngest granddaughter, Emma's daughter, now a writer. She wants to write a book about us, about our story. Caleb frowned. Why, who cares about 2 old people? Emma smiled. Because this is not just your story. It is a story about love conquering hate, about family found in snow, about community learning to accept. This is a story I will tell my great-grandchildren, so they know, no matter how dark things get, there is always light, always a way home. Caleb and Abigail looked at each other. No words were needed. 50 years, thousands of conversations. But this look said everything. Abigail rested her head on Caleb's shoulder. We did it, did we not? Did what created something that lasts longer than us? Caleb looked out at the valley, at Steele Academy still standing, 100 students now, at the town of Bozeman grown large but still welcoming, at his family gathered around him. Yes, we did. Caleb Ashford died in 1920, age 88, in his sleep with a smile on his face, as if seeing something beautiful no one else could see. They buried him next to Abigail, who had passed a year earlier at 79, on the hill overlooking Gallatin Valley. Their headstone read, Caleb and Abigail Ashford, beloved husband and wife. They found each other in the snow and built a home that lasts forever. Steele Academy operated until 1965, 97 years, teaching 5 generations of Montana children. When it finally closed, the building became a museum, preserving the story of the woman who taught that education was for everyone. The Ashford family still lives in Montana today, 6th generation now. They still farm some of the same land, still tell the same stories, still look up at the stars and remember. On cold winter nights when snow lies deep and wind howls through the mountains, the oldest among them still tell the tale of Caleb and Abigail and Emma, of a broken man who found redemption, of a woman of faith who found love, of a child who found family. They tell of the winter of 1867, when 3 lost souls came together in a cabin and found something none had been looking for. They found home, because true love does not need to begin with a promise, nor be held by ceremony. It grows in the quietest moments, a hand tending a wound, the warmth of a fire, a child saying Papa for the first time. True love is not loud, it does not demand. It simply asks that 2 broken people be brave enough to open their hearts again. And when they choose to stay not out of duty, but because their hearts lead them there, that is love strong enough to outlast winter. That is love strong enough to outlast time. So if you ever find yourself lost in darkness, remember the Ashfords. Remember that even in the coldest winter spring will come. Remember that even in the deepest grief joy can be found. Look up at the stars. They are waiting to guide you home.